I found a map of our house in my wife's secret safety deposit. It was tucked into the back of a dusty old shoebox in the attic, the kind of box you'd expect to find old tax returns and maybe a dried-out corsage from prom. But this box was different. It held letters I never sent, dreams I let go of, and then, underneath a pile of faded photographs, a perfectly drawn, scaled map of our home, meticulously detailed down to the last bookshelf and the exact placement of the thermostat. And right there, in her elegant, looping script, next to the master bedroom closet, was a single, chilling word: hide. Before we dive any deeper into this whole mess, seriously, if you're finding yourself drawn into this story, if it's making you feel something, then do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep this thing going. And while you're at it, give it a like if you're connecting with it. Share it with anyone you think might get something out of it, and for crying out loud, leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking, what you would do, what this makes you feel. Your engagement is everything. The house itself wasn't anything special. A solid 4-bedroom colonial in a decent suburb outside of Philly. Nothing fancy, but comfortable, lived in. We'd bought it 5 years ago, just after little Liam was born. Sarah, my wife, loved it from the moment we stepped through the front door. She called it our forever home. I'd always thought that was a bit dramatic, but I loved seeing her happy. She has this way of making everything feel brighter, more intentional, like she was painting a masterpiece with our lives, and I was just lucky enough to be a brushstroke. We'd been together for 10 years, 10 solid years. College sweethearts, the whole cliche. Met at a Friday night football game, same as 100 other couples. I was probably in my frat sweatshirt. She was Sarah. Stunning, with a laugh that could cut through any noise. We navigated the usual stuff. Late nights studying, early mornings working part-time jobs, that first apartment that smelled perpetually of burnt popcorn and desperation. Then came the proposal, the wedding, the house, and Liam. It was, by all accounts, a good life. A normal life. The kind of life people aspire to. The kind of life you see in commercials. But this map threw a grenade into the middle of it all. I remember standing there, the attic dust motes dancing in the sliver of light from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Hide. What was she hiding? From whom? And why a map? It wasn't just a casual doodle. It was precise. Every room outlined, measurements implied. The placement of the furniture, even the rug in the living room was noted. It was like a blueprint for something I wasn't privy to. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was for a game, a treasure hunt for Liam? But Liam was only 4. He wouldn't understand a map like this. And Sarah wasn't the game-playing type, not in that elaborate, organized way. She was more spontaneous, more about experiences than meticulously planned activities. No, this felt different. This felt calculated, secret. I pocketed the map, my hand trembling slightly. Downstairs, the sounds of Liam playing with his toy cars filled the air, a comforting, familiar rhythm. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepped dinner. The smell of roasting chicken wafted through the house, a scent I usually found deeply reassuring. Tonight, though, it just made my stomach churn. I walked into the kitchen, forcing a smile. "Hey," I said, my voice sounding a little too loud, a little too forced. She turned, her face lighting up. "Hey, yourself. Almost done here? Leon's been a menace with those cars. Took out a whole block of Lego buildings." I chuckled, but it felt hollow. "Sounds about right." I leaned against the counter, watching her. She was wearing that old, comfortable apron she always wore when she cooked, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She looked so real, so domestic, so mine. And the dissonance between that image and the sterile, precise lines on that map in my pocket was a chasm I was starting to fall into. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. She always knew. Sarah had this uncanny ability to read me, to sense my moods before I even articulated them. "Nothing," I lied. "Just thinking." "About what?" She wiped her hands on her apron and walked over to me, her eyes searching mine. "You've been quiet since you got back from the attic." The attic, the repository of forgotten things, of secrets we'd both stashed away over the years. But this wasn't a forgotten secret. This felt like a current one. "Just found some old stuff up there, made me nostalgic." It was a weak excuse, and I knew she could see right through it. She didn't push. Not then. She just smiled that gentle smile of hers and went back to the stove. "Well, let's get dinner on the table and you can tell me all about your trip down memory lane." Dinner was a stilted affair. Liam, bless his innocent heart, was the usual whirlwind of spilled milk and dropped peas. But even his childish chaos couldn't distract me. Every time Sarah reached for the salt, every time she refilled my water glass, I felt this prickle of unease. Was she looking at me differently?
Was there a flicker of something in her eyes that I'd never noticed before? After Liam was in bed, bathed and smelling of lavender, Sarah and I settled onto the couch. She curled up next to me, her head on my shoulder, and I held her close, trying to ignore the gnawing suspicion in my gut. We watched some mindless TV, the kind that's designed to fill the silence, to provide a backdrop to togetherness. But my mind was miles away, replaying the moment I found the map. "You're still quiet," she murmured, her voice muffled against my shirt. I sighed, the sound heavy with unspoken words. "Sarah, I found something in the attic." She pulled back slightly, her expression shifting from comfortable affection to a wary curiosity. "Oh yeah? What?" This was it, the moment of truth. I could lie again, try to bury it, pretend it never happened, or I could lay it all out, risk shattering the comfortable illusion we'd built. The thought of her reaction, of what it might mean, sent a cold dread through me. "A map," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting second, I saw something akin to panic flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by a carefully constructed mask of confusion. "A map? What are you talking about?" "The shoebox," I clarified. "The one with the old letters. There was a map in there, of our house, and next to the bedroom closet, you wrote hide." Her breath hitched, just a small sound, barely audible, but I heard it, and in that tiny sound, 1,000 unspoken things were revealed. Her grip tightened on my arm, her knuckles turning white. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her gaze darting away from mine, towards the darkened window. "Don't you?" My voice was rising, the carefully constructed calm I'd been trying to maintain crumbling around me. "Sarah, it was your handwriting. Hide. What were you hiding? From who? Why a map of our own house?" She finally looked back at me, her eyes brimming with tears, but there was something else there too.
A flicker of defiance. Anger, perhaps. "You were snooping," she accused, her voice trembling. "Snooping?" I pulled away from her, standing up. The intimacy of the couch felt suffocating. "I was looking for some old college yearbooks, Sarah. I found a secret map of our home with instructions on where to hide things. That's not snooping. That's terrifying." The tears started to fall freely now, but they didn't look like tears of sadness. They looked like tears of frustration, of being caught. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice choked. "Then help me understand," I practically shouted. "Because right now, all I can think is that my wife has been planning something that involves hiding things in our own house, and I have no idea what it is." She stood up too, facing me, her expression a mixture of hurt and something I couldn't quite decipher. Resignation? Fear? "It's not what you think," she said, her voice raw. "Then what is it, Sarah?" I demanded, my heart pounding with a desperate need for an answer, any answer. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, broken only by Liam's soft breathing from his room down the hall. The comforting sounds of our home had transformed into a tense, suffocating chamber. And then she said it, her voice barely audible, but cutting through the silence like a shard of glass. I wasn't the only one who knew about the map, Mark." My blood ran cold. The world tilted. "What do you mean, the only one?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. Who else? Who else was involved in this elaborate, terrifying charade? The possibilities swirled in my head, each one more sinister than the last. The comforting walls of our suburban home suddenly felt like a trap, and I was trapped inside with a secret I couldn't comprehend and a wife whose eyes held a darkness I'd never suspected. I looked at her, this woman I thought I knew better than anyone, and I saw a stranger. The silence that followed her words was deafening, filled only by the frantic thrumming of my own heart, a drumbeat of pure, unadulterated dread. What had I stumbled into? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? The map was just the beginning. The real secrets I suspected were buried much, much deeper. The air in the living room, moments before thick with the smell of roasted chicken and the comfort of routine, had become as thin and brittle as ice. Her words, "I wasn't the only one who knew about the map, Mark," hung between us, a venomous cloud obscuring everything I thought I understood. The simple act of finding a strange drawing had detonated our carefully constructed reality, and now the fallout was beginning. My mind, usually a steady engine, was sputtering, gears grinding against a reality too bizarre to process. Who else? The question echoed in the hollow space that had opened up inside me. Sarah, my wife, the mother of my child,
The woman whose laugh had once been my favorite sound had not only created this cryptic directive, but had shared its existence. Shared it with whom? I stared at her, searching her face for any clue, any flicker of the woman I knew. Her eyes were still wet, but the fear, the confusion I'd seen earlier, was warring with a new, steely resolve. It wasn't the look of a woman caught in a simple domestic secret. It was the look of someone facing an accusation, someone cornered but ready to fight. The confession wasn't a full unraveling. It was a tantalizing, terrifying half-truth, designed perhaps to deflect, to confuse further. Who, Sarah? My voice was a low, dangerous growl, stripped of its earlier panic. The anger was starting to simmer, a slow burn beneath the shock. Who else knew about a map of our house? A map with instructions to hide things? I took a step towards her, my gaze unwavering. Was it your sister? That friend of yours, Jessica, who always seemed a little too interested in our lives? Or is this something bigger? The word bigger hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications of infidelity, of danger, of things I couldn't even begin to imagine. She flinched at my tone, but didn't back down. It's complicated, Mark. You wouldn't understand. Wouldn't understand? I scoffed, the sound sharp and disbelieving. Sarah, you handed me a roadmap to potential criminal activity in our own house and expect me to just nod along? You think I wouldn't understand the concept of betrayal? Of my wife having secrets she's sharing with others? My voice rose again, the careful control I'd tried to maintain dissolving. Is that what this is about? Is there someone else? Is that why you're drawing maps and telling me to hide things? Her face crumpled, and for a moment I saw the familiar vulnerability I loved. No. God, Mark, no. It's not about another man. It's not about infidelity. She wrung her hands. Her gaze dropped to the floor. It's about protecting us. Protecting us? I repeated, the words dripping with sarcasm. By drawing secret maps? By making me think you're hiding something or someone in our closet? That's not protection, Sarah. That's paranoia. That's insane. I ran a hand through my hair, the strands feeling rough and unmanageable. You need to tell me everything, now. No more cryptic nonsense. Who else knew? She finally met my eyes, and the depth of her distress was palpable. But beneath it, I still saw that hard edge, that fierce protectiveness. It was like looking at a beautiful, intricate mask and knowing there was something wild and perhaps dangerous beneath. It was Mr. Henderson, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Mr. Henderson. My stomach lurched. Mr. Henderson, our elderly neighbor, a quiet widower who lived alone, who occasionally brought over his prize-winning tomatoes from his garden. The man whose greatest excitement seemed to be attending the local gardening club meetings. That Mr. Henderson? What are you talking about? Mr. Henderson, the 80-year-old man who can barely walk to his mailbox. What does he have to do with a map of our house? I felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up, but I choked it down. This was too serious, too bizarre. He helped me, she said, her voice gaining a fragile strength. He's not just a lonely old man, Mark. He has experience. He saw something. He warned me. He said we needed a plan, a contingency. A contingency for what? I demanded, my mind reeling. Was Mr. Henderson some kind of ex-spy, a paranoid prepper? What exactly did he warn you about, Sarah? And what exactly are we being protected from? She took a deep breath, her shoulders straightened. He saw someone watching the house weeks ago. He recognized them. Someone from my past. My past. The question that had been simmering beneath the surface, the one I'd pushed away in my shock and anger, resurfaced with a vengeance. My past, or her past. The word past took on a sinister new meaning. The letters I'd found in the shoebox, the dreams I'd let go of. Was this connected? Had she been holding on to more than just sentimental trinkets? Your past, I clarified, my voice tight. What about your past, Sarah? What from your past could possibly involve Mr. Anderson and secret maps? She hesitated. Her gaze flickered towards Liam's bedroom door, as if the very mention of it might wake him. There are things I never told you, Mark. Things I thought were buried, but they aren't.
She finally looked at me, her eyes pleading. That map, it wasn't just a random drawing. It was a plan, a very specific plan. Mr. Henderson, he has a network, people who know how to handle things. He thought if anyone came looking for me, for something I had, we'd need a place to secure it, and a way to be ready. Secure what? And who is they? My mind was a whirlwind of disconnected images, shadowy figures lurking in the suburbs, secret compartments in our walls, my wife's hidden life. It was like a bad thriller movie, except this was my life, my home, my family. The normalcy I'd so cherished was shattering into a million pieces, and the jagged edges were cutting me. It's something I was involved with years ago, before I met you, something I thought I'd escaped completely, she said, her voice cracking. A mistake, a really, really big mistake, and it's come back to find me. A mistake? I echoed, the word feeling ridiculously inadequate. Sarah, you're talking about secret meetings with an elderly neighbor, coded maps, and people from your past coming to find you. This isn't a minor slip-up. This sounds dangerous. I clenched my fists, the knuckles white. What was it? What did you do? She looked away, her breathing shallow. I was young, stupid. I fell in with the wrong crowd. There was a debt to people who don't forget, people who don't forgive. Her voice was a whisper, laced with a fear that was chillingly real. I thought I'd paid it off, put it all behind me. But Mr. Henderson, he knew someone who knew someone, and they remembered me. They remembered what I owed. The pieces were starting to form a horrifying mosaic. The map, the word hide, Mr. Henderson's involvement. It all pointed to a looming threat, something Sarah had been desperately trying to conceal. But the biggest piece, the most gaping hole, was the nature of this past mistake. What kind of debt could lead to this level of paranoia, this need for secret plans and hidden compartments? So, this map, I said, my voice low and steady now, the initial surge of anger replaced by a cold, calculated dread. This map isn't about hiding toys or old letters, is it? It's about hiding something valuable, something they want. I looked around our comfortable living room, the framed photos of Liam and us smiling on vacations, the worn armchair where we'd spent countless evenings. This was our sanctuary, and now it was a potential battleground. What is it, Sarah? What did you hide? She finally met my gaze, and the terror in her eyes was raw and unfiltered. I don't have anything to hide, Mark. Not anymore. That's what I told Mr. Henderson. But he insisted. He said they would tear this place apart looking for it. So I showed him where I'd hidden it, years ago, before you even knew me, a long time ago. My breath hitched. Hidden it? Where? Where is it, Sarah? The intensity of my question was not just about my wife's secrets anymore. It was about my own safety, my son's safety. If people were willing to come after her, they wouldn't hesitate to harm us. She swallowed, her gaze fixed on mine, and the revelation that followed was like a physical blow. Underneath the floorboards, she whispered, her voice barely audible, in the old wine cellar, behind the stone wall. The wine cellar. We'd bought the house 5 years ago, and the previous owners had mentioned a disused wine cellar in the basement, a relic from an earlier era, filled with cobwebs and a faint musty odor. We'd looked at it once, deemed it too damp and creepy, and promptly boarded it up, intending to deal with it someday. Someday had apparently arrived, and with it a secret I had no idea existed within the walls of our forever home. The wine cellar? I repeated, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. You hid something there? What is it, Sarah? What is so important that people are threatening us over it? The silence that followed was deafening, a void where an answer should have been. I looked at her, this woman I had shared my life with, my bed, my dreams, and in that moment I realized I knew almost nothing about her past, about the secrets she carried. The map was just the surface. The real depth of the danger and the unknown lay beneath those sealed floorboards, and as the realization dawned, a primal fear, colder and sharper than anything I had ever felt, washed over me. What had she brought into our lives, and what was about to come for us? The silence stretched, heavy with the unspoken weight of years. Sarah's eyes, once clear and bright, now held a depth of fear I'd never seen, a fear that transcended our immediate situation and reached back into the shadows of her life. I watched her, my heart hammering against my ribs,
a frantic drumbeat against the backdrop of impending storm. The initial shock had subsided, replaced by a gnawing dread, a cold certainty that our carefully constructed normalcy was a fragile illusion. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was crumbling. "What is it, Sarah?" My voice was raspy, stripped of any pretense of calm. The question wasn't just about an object anymore. It was about the very foundation of our marriage, about the person I had chosen to spend my life with. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, a silent plea to a God I wasn't sure she believed in, or perhaps a moment to gather the courage she seemed to be clawing for. When they opened again, they were filled with a weariness that seemed to stretch back decades. It's not an object, Mark. Not exactly. My brow furrowed. Not an object? Then what? Money? Jewels? What is worth this much trouble? She shook her head slowly, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, catching the dim light of the living room. It's proof, Mark. Proof of what they did. To me, to others. Proof. The word landed like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about a debt, a mistake, or even revenge. This was about something larger, something that had far-reaching implications. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of her confession. My wife, the woman who organized PTA meetings and worried about Liam's grades, had been involved in something that generated proof of what they did. It sounded like something out of a crime novel, a conspiracy theory. Proof of what? Who are they, Sarah? And what did they do? The questions spilled out of me, each one carrying a heavier weight of dread. I took a step closer, my gaze locked on her, trying to read the answers in her trembling lips. She drew a shaky breath, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Before I met you, a long time ago, I was working a summer job. It seemed like innocent entry-level stuff. Data entry, office assistant, for a company. It looked legitimate on the surface. Everyone seemed normal, professional. Her voice dropped, becoming a near whisper, as if the walls themselves could hear and report back. But it wasn't. It was a front for something illegal, something cruel. My stomach clenched. Cruel how? They were exploiting people, Mark, taking advantage, not just financially. There were darker things, things I saw, things I heard, things I was forced to be a part of, even if it was just by being there, by staying silent. Her voice cracked, the emotion finally overwhelming her carefully constructed composure. I was young, stupid.
I didn't know how to get out. And then I found out something specific. Something really bad. Something that could have hurt a lot of people if it had come to light in the wrong way. Or not at all. She paused, swallowing hard. I copied some files. Evidence. I thought I was being smart. I thought I could use it to get away, to ensure they couldn't come after me. I thought I'd destroyed it all when I left, burned everything. But I didn't. Not all of it. A portion I hid, because I was too afraid to destroy it, and too afraid to just have it lying around. So I put it where I thought no one would ever look, in the old cellar. The wine cellar, the musty, forgotten space in the basement. My mind struggled to reconcile the image of Sarah, my wife, meticulously hiding evidence of a potentially criminal enterprise years before we even met. It felt surreal, like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. "So you hid incriminating documents," I stated, the words cold and clinical. "Documents that prove what this company did, and they're looking for it." She nodded, tears streaming freely now. "They must have found out I have it. Or someone who knew about it talked. Mr. Henderson. He heard whispers. He's older, Mark. He's seen things, done things in his life. He's not just a gardener. He was connected to people who could handle things discreetly. He recognized the danger. He knew what they were capable of. And he helped you create a map to it." I gestured vaguely towards the crumpled paper on the coffee table. The absurdity of it all threatened to break me. A map for our house, to a hidden compartment in the basement,
He helped me strategize, she corrected, her voice regaining a sliver of its former strength. He said the best way to protect it was to make it look like nothing, a forgotten space. And he was right. It's been years. They'd forgotten about it. Until now. My anger, which had been a slow burn, began to flare again, fueled by a growing sense of violation and betrayal. Not by Sarah, but by the phantom figures from her past who were now threatening our present. So this isn't about our life, our home being invaded. This is about your past catching up with you, and you dragged us into it. The words were harsh, but I couldn't help them. The fear for Liam, for myself, was a palpable thing. She flinched, her gaze falling again. I never wanted to. I swear, Mark, I thought I had buried it so deep, no one would ever find me. I thought I was safe. I thought we were safe. Safe. I scoffed, the sound hollow. Sarah, we're talking about people who are willing to break into our lives, who know about secret compartments, who are apparently still active and dangerous after all these years. And you only told me because Mr. Henderson saw someone watching the house. What if he hadn't? What if they had just broken in and found it themselves? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. What if they had found Liam's room? The weight of her secret, now shared, pressed down on me. It wasn't just her fear anymore. It was ours. I looked around her home, the familiar comfort now tainted with a dark, unsettling undercurrent. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat. Every creak of the floorboards a potential intruder. So, what are we supposed to do, Sarah? My voice was low, a dangerous calm settling over me. The initial panic had given way to a desperate need for action, for a plan. These people, they know you have it. They've been watching. Do they know where it is? She shook her head, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I don't think so. Mr. Henderson was very careful. He said the best defense was to act like nothing was wrong. But they're persistent. They'll keep looking. They'll escalate. Escalate. The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. What does that mean? It means they won't stop, she whispered, her voice trembling. They'll search. They'll make threats. They'll do whatever it takes to get it back. Because if this information gets out, it could ruin them. It could put people away. Real people. Powerful people. Powerful people. The phrase echoed in my mind, painting a picture of a shadowy, ruthless organization operating beneath the veneer of legitimacy. My blood ran cold. This wasn't some petty crime she'd been involved in. This was something serious. Something with potentially deadly consequences. And the map, I said, picking up the crumpled paper again, my fingers tracing the crude lines. This is our guide to the proof. And a warning. Yes, she confirmed, her gaze unwavering now, a flicker of the steely resolve I'd seen earlier returning. A warning, and a way to know if they've been there. If anything is disturbed, the map shows the original state. Anything out of place, we'll know. I finished for her, my mind already racing ahead. We need to move it. We can't keep it here. Not in our house. Not under Liam's room. The thought of our son sleeping peacefully upstairs, oblivious to the danger that lurked beneath him, was unbearable. Sarah's face paled further at the mention of Liam. Move it. Where, Mark? Where could we possibly take something like that? They'll be looking everywhere. They'll be watching us. I don't know, I admitted. The words are raw confession of my own helplessness. But we can't leave it here. It's too dangerous. We need to get it out of this house. Somewhere secure. Somewhere they won't think to look. I paced the living room, my mind a frantic scramble for solutions. We need to contact the authorities, Sarah. This is bigger than us. This is criminal activity. She shook her head vehemently. No, Mark, you don't understand.
They're too powerful. They have influence. If we go to the police, they could discredit us. They could make it look like we're trying to extort them. Or worse, they could silence us before we even get a chance to tell our story. Her fear was palpable. Her conviction absolute. She had clearly spent years living with this threat, internalizing its dangers. So we just wait for them to come for us. My voice was laced with disbelief. The idea of passive waiting, of being a victim, went against every fiber of my being. Mr. Henderson, he has a plan, she said, her voice regaining a quiet authority. He said he knows people who can help, people who understand this world, people who can protect the evidence, and protect us. He said he would make arrangements. We just need to get the documents to him. Safely. Safely. I repeated, the word feeling like a cruel joke. How? They're watching. They're looking. He said he has a window. She explained, her gaze becoming distant, as if she were visualizing the intricate plan Mr. Henderson had laid out. A small window. Tonight, he'll come for them himself. He knows the house. He knows the cellar. He can get them out without drawing attention. The thought of our elderly neighbor, the one who brought us tomatoes, being involved in something so clandestine sent a fresh wave of bewilderment through me. But his age, his quiet demeanor, the very fact that he was an overlooked figure, might just be the perfect cover. He's coming tonight, I asked, my mind racing. To our house, to get the documents from the cellar. Yes, she confirmed, her eyes fixed on mine, a silent plea for trust passing between us. He said he'll come when it's quiet.
When they're least expecting it. He'll know what to do. He's done this before. The weight of the decision settled on my shoulders. Trusting an elderly neighbor I barely knew, based on my wife's fractured confession about a past I'd never imagined, it was insane. But the alternative, leaving the evidence here, waiting for these dangerous people to find it, was even more terrifying. The protection of our son was paramount. "All right," I said, the word feeling heavy with consequence. "All right, Sarah, we'll do it. But you're telling me everything, every single detail. No more secrets. If we're going to do this, we do it together, and we do it with all the cards on the table." Her relief was so profound, it was almost physical. She sagged against the sofa, tears of exhaustion and fear mingling with a flicker of hope. "Thank you, Mark. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. I was just so scared." "I know," I said, my voice softening slightly. The anger was still there, a simmering ember, but it was being overshadowed by the sheer magnitude of the situation and a strange, burgeoning sense of shared purpose. "But we'll deal with this, together, for Liam." We spent the next few hours in a tense silence, punctuated by hushed conversations about the cellar, about the map, about the potential threats. Sarah meticulously recounted every detail she remembered about the files, about the company, about the people she'd worked with. The more she spoke, the clearer the picture became, a grim tableau of corporate malfeasance and human exploitation. The files, she explained, weren't just documents. They were a digital repository of damning evidence, financial records, internal communications, victim testimonies. As darkness fell, a new tension settled over the house. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, every distant sound amplified. Liam was asleep upstairs, a world away from the storm brewing in our living room. I checked his door one last time, the quiet breathing of my son a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. We sat in the living room, the only light emanating from a single lamp in the corner, casting long, dancing shadows. The map lay on the coffee table, a silent sentinel. We listened, our ears strained for any unfamiliar noise, any sign of intrusion. The air was thick with anticipation, with the knowledge that a stranger, an ally in this surreal drama, was about to enter our home, and that the proof of Sarah's past was a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a soft scraping at the side door,
the one that led to the back garden and, indirectly, to the cellar entrance. We both froze, our eyes locking. It wasn't the aggressive intrusion of trespassers. It was a deliberate, coded signal. "That's him," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I rose slowly, my movements deliberate, my senses on high alert. I had to secure Liam, make sure he remained undisturbed, and then I had to face whatever came next. I grabbed Sarah's hand, squeezing it tight. "Stay here, lock the door behind me. I'll go with him. I need to see this." She nodded, her face a mask of fear and determination. "Be careful, Mark, please." I moved towards the side door, the map clutched in my other hand. As I reached for the lock, I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping from outside, a series of distinct knocks that echoed the pattern Sarah had described Mr. Henderson using. It was a clandestine rendezvous, a handover in the dead of night, with the fate of our family, and perhaps the truth of a dark secret hanging precariously in the balance. The door creaked open, revealing not a shadowy figure, but the familiar, stooped silhouette of our elderly neighbor, Mr. Henderson, his eyes surprisingly sharp and alert in the dim light. He held a small, nondescript duffel bag in his hand, a silent testament to the dangerous cargo he was about to retrieve. The real confrontation was not with an enemy, but with the stark, terrifying reality of Sarah's hidden life and the precarious path we were now forced to navigate, together, into an uncertain future. The weight of it all felt crushing, but in that moment, standing on the precipice of the unknown, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Quality of the presentation and design